For anyone who just joined, my name is Mark Gapman Sr. I'm the campaigns manager at Save Ohio Parks. And thank you all for having us tonight. If you were missing the end of the France and Morocco World Cup game, I appreciate you sacrificing that to be here. France won 2-0. Thank you, Mbappe. And yeah, thank you all for being here. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please drop them in the chat. Also, if you just joined us, please put your name and location in the chat. I'm seeing folks actually joining from over. I'm originally from Northeast Ohio. I'm here in Columbus now. So nice to see you all. And also, please stay on mute if you're here on Zoom. Please stay on mute. You'll have a chance to unmute toward the end and ask questions, or you can once again put those in the chat. The last thing I'm going to say before turning it over to Gina is you can click the link that I am dropping in the chat right now. This is our Join Us link, and this gets you on our mailing list. And I try not to clog your inbox with a bunch of updates. I try to actually just reach out to you and say, hey, here's something happening, and here's something you can do about it. So please click on the Join Us link and get on our list. And that way you can know what we have going on. And with that, I will turn it over to Gina.
All right. Thank you, Mark. And thank you, everybody, for joining virtually and in person. I first want to thank Save Ohio Parks. This is something that we've been trying to coordinate for several months now. So thank you guys for helping this come to fruition. And thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening. So tonight, our presentation is from Save Ohio Parks on the facts on fracking. Save Ohio Parks is a statewide nonprofit 501c3 and 501c4 formed in 2023 after the Ohio legislature passed HB 507, which was a law opening up Ohio state parks and public lands for fracking. Save Ohio Parks' mission is to educate Ohioans on the negative health, environmental, and planet warming effects that fracking of our public lands causes. Tonight with us, we have Mark, who was just talking to us. He's the campaigns manager with Save Ohio Parks. Mark is based in Columbus. He's a political strategist and campaigns manager for SOP, which is their acronym. He leads events and actions to protect Ohio's public lands from fracking. As founder of On the Mark Advocacy and Campaigns, he has nearly 20 years of organizing experience, including voter engagement, work across 5 states with the National Urban League's Reclaim Your Vote program. Before joining SOP, Mark ran community energy aggregation ballot campaigns that won in 6 Ohio communities, cutting emissions by 50% and proving that everyday Ohioans will show up for clean energy when you give them a real choice. Mark, that's so impressive. Thank you for all that you do. And then our presenter for the day is Melinda Zemper, a board member of Save Ohio Parks. She will be presenting the deck that's going to be shown on the screen here momentarily. She is a former journalist, public relations professional, and entrepreneur, and taught English, composition, and literature as an adjunct professor at a major Ohio university for 22 years. So we're about to learn a lot. I've actually seen a prior version of this presentation. It's highly educational. Thank you, everybody that is here from Indivisible Akron and from Save Ohio Parks. And with that, Melinda, I'll pass it over to you.
Great, thank you. Let me get my screen shared here. Here we go. Talking about fracking is difficult for many people, myself included, but it's something that we need to do. And we need to talk about this more and more often. We'll just dive right in here. What is fracking? Fracking is a gas and oil development or gas and oil technology that was developed in the late 1940s by Halliburton. And it now constitutes the vast majority of oil and gas generation or production in the US today. So just for a second, I want you to picture this. You've got a forest, a state park, or a wildlife area with a 10 to 20 acre well pad right in the middle of it. So it's bisecting biodiversity, creeks, and adding noise as well as extra light to the area. Frack pads can drill vertically through the groundwater, through the aquifers, and then make right angle moves to crack the shale oil and bring all that up to the surface. The shale bedrock is fractured to release the gas and oil, and the wastewater is then brought to the surface along with the gas and oil. That wastewater is now called produced water or brine. The gas and oil is separated from the water and taken off to be processed. But the water used for fracking is now contaminated. It's radioactive, it's toxic, and it can never be drunk by human beings again or animals. And in Ohio, Save Ohio Parks research has found that 1.9 billion gallons of our fresh water, equal to about 2,800 Olympic-sized swim pools, has already been permitted to be sold for use in fracking. Now, Buckeye Environmental Network has found that 15 billion gallons of toxic radioactive brine, that's the equivalent of 23,000 Olympic pools, has been injected into Ohio Class 2 injection wells since the period of 2015 to 2024. And that produced water can contain radium-226 and 228, which cause cancer in high doses. The EPA safe dose for radium is 5 picocuries per liter. But in Ohio, nobody is testing that. Now, we're concerned here with the pollution and the desecration of parks that has to do with fracking. Fracking's methane emissions pollute the air and heat up the planet. The leaks, the flares, and accidents that are associated with gas and oil fracking are 86% more potent than CO2 from cars, and they heat the atmosphere faster over their 12-year lifetime. Now, LNG, liquefied natural gas, is a byproduct of natural gas. It's compressed and cold, so it can be exported. The US is now the number one exporter of LNG in the world. I think that's since 2022. So that's a direct correlation with the fracking that's been expanded here. And unfortunately, LNG has a 33% greater greenhouse gas footprint than coal when you consider the entire life cycle of gas fracking, transportation, processing into LNG, and transportation to its final destination. That is really devastating. Something that's related to the fossil fuel situation in Ohio is now the state legislature is looking to permit carbon capture and sequestration projects in Ohio. That is a false solution for CO2, which is carbon dioxide storage. 40% of our century's methane gas emissions so far are from fracking. That's really 8 times the amount of methane in the world today than we get from agriculture, meaning cattle and that kind of thing. So here's a very brief history of fracking in Ohio. Right around 2011, when the technology made it, I guess, more reasonable, fracking was expanded in Ohio, and horizontal fracking ramped up right around the early 2000s. In around 2012, about 800 people protested the expansion of fracking in Ohio in downtown Columbus, and that was sufficient for Governor Kasich to back down on his plans. But plans to, and at that time, fracking was legal for private lands in Ohio. But in 2023, the HB 507 chicken bill amendments were added during a lame duck session in the fall, right after the fall elections in 2023. And those amendments said that fracking will now be required under state parks and public lands, and that natural gas would be considered green energy or clean energy, which of course it is not. The regulation of fracking under our state parks and public lands is regulated by the Ohio Gas Land Management Commission, but that is not a democratic organization or a democratic process. They won't allow us to speak at meetings. We can submit questions to them. We have no idea whether they even look at the letters and the articles that we post to them. So to be honest, just about every parcel that they've had up for permitting has been approved. And last week alone, they approved another 15,000 acres to be fracked. It's clear from us at Save Ohio Parks that Ohio is not going to stop fracking our public lands without a change in the legislature. So that's really something to think about. And we are of the opinion that Ohio faces a looming environmental crisis because of our state's lax regulation and poor storage management of our toxic radioactive gas and oil waste. One of the reasons that the Ohio legislature claims that fracking is a good thing is that it's an economic booster for Ohioans, especially Ohioans who live in Appalachian Ohio, which is eastern and southeastern Ohio. But we know that after 15 years of being fracked, that the 8 counties that make up Ohio's most fracked counties, they have experienced net job loss, lagging incomes, and population losses. And now that's according to Frackalacha, which is a report that the think tanks Institute, Ohio River Valley Institute, has updated probably a few times. And I think the latest edition was 2025. The Ohio Valley, which makes up eastern, southeastern Ohio, western Pennsylvania, and northwestern West Virginia, we rank 2nd in US and 4th in the world for greenhouse gas emissions that are contributing to and accelerating climate warming and climate change. Why should we care about fracking Ohio public lands? Because they are precious and they belong to us. In 1949, the state parks were established for Ohioans as a way for the average person to get out and enjoy nature and to enjoy for our leisure as pleasure. Our state parks make up only 0.77% of Ohio's acreage. Only 3% of our land is in state parks and wildlife areas, as well as forests and preserves. And we know through research, as well as documentation, that fracking is dangerous and accident prone. It ruins forests, and as well as plant and animal insect biodiversity. It depletes Ohio's lakes and rivers and creeks, and it converts fresh water into toxic radioactive waste brine. That waste brine can never be drunk by humans or livestock again. And it's very interesting, and this is just a very fairly recent correlation that scientists have made, is that 15 years of fracking and the increased methane emissions from fracking correlates to the rapidly accelerated climate change and climate warming that we've been experiencing for the last 15 years. It's gone up like a hockey stick. So why is Ohio fracking public lands anyway? And the easy answer to that is because all the private lands have been fracked out. It's a question of money and power and money and power. And it all pretty much started out in Ohio when in 2010, the US Supreme Court decided, and in its Citizens United decision, that corporations had free speech rights similar to individuals. And that really opened up the floodgates for the gas and oil industry to come into Ohio and start making friends in the legislature and influencing with lobbyists and donations to candidates. We have found through Open Secrets that 80 to 90% of gas and oil donation dollars go to the Ohio GOP. When you have a lot of money being thrown and you're running for office, there's probably a good chance you'll win. In Ohio, that has proven to be true. Now the GOP has a supermajority. They have taken that power that they have gerrymandered legislative voting districts so they can keep winning and control the legislation. And consequently, we're getting very bad laws from them that do not consider what people want. They're not, they can basically, as Matt Huffman, Speaker of the House, once said, we can do whatever we want. And I believe that they are doing that. Now, the state has, in terms of its fracking revenue, is going to take in about $310 million on its leading fracking leases. Last year in 2026, the state of Ohio cut ODNR Parks and Recreation's budget by 50%. And what that does is it just forces the ODNR to approve more fracking leases so there's more revenue so it can fill its budget holes. And I think personally that's rather reprehensible. Now, in terms of power, we know that fracking creates power, that's natural gas power. And as we're evolved right now in a data center crisis here in Ohio, we had a Save Ohio Parks board member do some primary research. And she concluded that Ohio quashed 5.3 gigawatts of wind and solar energy projects over the last 12 years while still promoting fossil fuels. So this is despite renewable energy being now cheaper, reliable with battery storage, and emissions free. Now, in terms of data centers is another issue that's come to the fore recently, I'd say maybe during the last year or so, and has really started to hit home right around late 2025. There's been a mad rush for data centers everywhere, and nowhere is it more apparent than in Ohio. Right now, we have 217 data centers that have been sited. Most of these data centers will be powered by fracked gas plants, natural gas plants, which is going to increase CO2 emissions. That's carbon dioxide. These data centers use massive amounts of energy, and some people have reported that their electric costs have gone up about 44%. And unfortunately, we're going to see prices go up even more in Ohio. Data centers deplete your fresh water because they need to cool their machinery, and they take that fresh water from community groundwater sources. When that water is shot back into the water system, the Ohio EPA has told us that we can expect and we should accept lowered drinking water quality. And that is something I think that has galvanized Ohioans especially, because we're not ready to accept that. And I don't think we should. Now, pollution from data centers will increase in two different areas. At the point of extraction, which would be in east and southeastern Ohio, as natural gas is fracked from state parks and public lands. And then again through generation when the data centers are running. So we're going to end up with more CO2 in the air, an increase of respiratory illnesses like COPD and asthmas, as well as affiliated hormonal and fertility issues. Out of all the large data centers that are being approved pretty quickly in Ohio without community input, or at least the communities are inputting, but it seems that officials are not listening. The SoftBank AI data center, which is a Japanese-owned data center located in Piketon, Ohio, that data center alone is supposed to emit the equivalent of 3.8 million cars in terms of emissions to the air. There's a lot of communities like Hilliard, like the Darby Creek area that face similar types of situations. Maybe not 3.8 million cars, but substantial amount. And as you can see in this photo here, this is the Darby Glen data center, and it's located just 100, maybe 150 feet from a local neighborhood. So these data centers are taking up land, and they are going to be spewing out CO2 in areas where children play and where we have parks and schools. Another aspect of data centers that is really probably most urgent is the whole climate change issue, because fracking causes methane, which pollutes the air and accelerates climate change. Now, 4 years ago, in 2023, the world first breached 1.5 degrees Celsius warming. And our warmest temperatures on record since record keeping has begun have been from the years 2015 to 2025. So the world is getting hot, and it's only going to get hotter. We're finding that our Alaskan glaciers are melting faster than expected. And last summer, our heat broke records. The global surface temperature of 1.17 degrees Celsius was breached. That's a lot. That means more drought, wildfires, floods, storms, hurricanes. All of those things are coming, and we can see those daily in the news that they are really here. One of the most depressing things I can think about climate change is that at 5 degrees consistent warming, 70 to 90% of coral reefs will die globally. About 80% of our coral reefs right now are threatened. Once that happens and we hit that point of 1.5 degrees consistently, which may be, in terms of climate scientists, they're not going to call it for 10 or 20 years, but we're experiencing it now, and we know that that's probably going to be the trend. But when these coral reefs dies, then we're going to have a domino effect of animal extinctions, especially marine animal extinctions, and the loss of our commercial fishing industry. It's not going to be pleasant, but there are a lot of things that we can do, and we're hoping to communicate those to you tonight. Now, James Hansen, who is a very famous climate scientist, probably the premier climate scientist, he addressed Congress in 1988 or 89. He projected that the global temperature record of 1.7 degrees Celsius in 2027, this year. He's further confirming global warming acceleration. There are climate deniers out there, but they're exceedingly diminishing. The latest statistics that I read from Yale Climate Communications were that 63% of all Americans do acknowledge that humans have caused the climate to warm and are worried and concerned about climate change. In Ohio, that number is about 58%. So we lag nationally, but we're still a majority. 58% of Ohioans believe that humans are causing climate change, and they're worried about it. 91% of 9,000 researchers worldwide say that we need fundamental social, political, and economic change if we want to avoid climate catastrophe. So basically, fossil fuels are incompatible with a viable planet. We can see that climate change is already happening in Ohio. And what I show you here are statistics that came from the Bird Polar Institute here in Columbus. But the 2026 summer could be the very hottest summer ever. And our 4 seasons are slowly devolving into 2 seasons. By mid-century, we'll probably have one hot, dry season that we'll call summer. And we'll have a cooler, wetter season with little snow that will be called winter. This is the part for me that it's unconscionable. By 2095, our climate will be very similar to Louisiana, very hot and humid. Right now, our deciduous trees are at immediate risk, and you may have noticed that in your own lot at home and in your gardens. One of the things that I love to do in the Olympic cycle is watch the Winter Olympics. And this year I read that that 1/2 of the 93 snow-ready sites worldwide that are used for snow skiing and the snow events at the Olympics will be unsuitable for the Winter Olympics by the 2050s. But so the big question in my mind is why do we allow one industry to decide Ohio's fate when renewable energy can help? This is a global problem as well as a state problem. So you may ask yourself, I'm just one person. What can I do about this? You can do a lot. Save Ohio Parks has 8 people on its board, but we feel like we're being effective in getting the word out about the dangers of fracking and the need to shift to renewable energy right now. But if you really want to take positive action on fracking, be curious, learn as much as you can from accurate media sources and respected medical and scientific sources about climate change. Tell your local and state elected and appointed officials to prioritize clean air and clean water, pristine parks, and biodiversity in our parks for us and for future generations. You can contact them, your representatives, as well as your senators, so we can make individual information available for you if you'd like. So another thing you can do is discuss Fracking Ohio with your family and friends and join an environmental group. It doesn't have to be Save Ohio Parks. We'd love to have you as a volunteer, but there's at least 29 others that are part of our coalition that wants a moratorium on fracking. There's 29 organizations, environmental organizations in Ohio that have asked Governor DeWine to call a moratorium on fracking. He has ignored us. Lastly, it's really important to learn about the local candidates that you'll be voting on in November. So vote for candidates, do your research, and choose candidates who will protect public lands, stop fracking, and expand cheaper, reliable, and renewable energies like wind and solar. So if you have questions, just give us a shout at hello@saveohioparks.org. We're on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Blue Sky. You can interface with us there in terms of commenting and retweeting. We're also on LinkedIn, although that's not as monitored. I think you can probably reach us more as individuals as you can as an entity. And go to our website. We have a lot of information on our website in terms of studies, research, media clips from stories that have been done about fracking, about Save Ohio Parks. And there's a lot to learn. So we hope that you do join us in terms of whetting your interest in fracking is with actions that you can take. Now, that basically concludes my presentation, or our presentation tonight. I know you're probably feeling a range of emotions right now. And you could be feeling, denial, anger, or even despair. But we recognize at Save Ohio Parks that the gas and oil industry of Ohio and the lawmakers that support it remain willfully ignorant about the facts about fracking. They are actively choosing to pollute our fresh air and our clean water and our pristine natural places at the expense of Ohioans' health, at our lands, and the ability of our children and our grandchildren to live on a viable planet. So we really have a daunting task ahead of us to stop fracking under state parks and public lands. But please remember this. The oil and gas industry and its investors and the billionaires that support it may have most of the money, but we still have the vote. So together we can challenge Ohio's fossil fuel industry and Ohio's fossil fuels energy policy and make some positive changes here. So thank you very much, for the opportunity to present to you tonight. And now I'll just turn this over to Mark for questions.
Thank you, Melinda. Great presentation as always. We got our first question in the chat here from Bob. Bob asks, why don't all Ohioans know that nearly 2 billion gallons of drinking water are permanently toxic because of fracking? And all of this is in a state that suffered severe drought last summer.
Well, Bob, I would just say that information was research conducted by Buckeye Environmental Network. And they're continually doing research to uncover things like that. We're always faced with the communication problem. Ohio has lost a lot of local newspapers over the last 10, 15 years, just like nationally, I think we've lost maybe 2,000 local papers. And the papers that are left, a lot of them are owned by investor corporations. And they want a set amount of percentage profit each year. So what do? They cut staffing. So we're seeing a resurgence in nonprofit media. And you'll see that in newspapers like Signal Ohio, Ohio Capital Journal. But the fact is that there are a lot of Ohioans that just are not reading the newspaper. They are, listening to the radio. We do have great NPR coverage throughout Ohio, as well as public news service. So it's a continual struggle, and ultimately, we just have to keep trying, keep going. I hope that was helpful.
Thank you, Melinda. And as Kathy put in the chat, that 1.9 billion gallons, that's only from fracking of public lands. The number is much, much higher when you include all fracking waste. And then Gina asked a question. What are the highest fracked counties?
There are 8 highest frack counties. I don't know if I can recite them all, but they include Harrison, Belmont. Oh gosh, anybody who can help me out here, go ahead. I don't think Athens County is one of the top 8.
I'm guessing Guernsey County is one of them.
Guernsey, definitely.
That's from the Frackalacha report. I'll find that and put that in the chat.
Okay, yeah, that would be helpful.
There'll be a
Thank you,
map.
Kathy.
Oh, so sorry, I muted myself by accident there. Can you speak briefly to the approval process to frack? Can you speak to the areas recently approved or what is being considered?
Well, the process to frack basically is if you're a driller and you think that you've studied or you think that there might be gas and oil shale deposits beneath a state park or a wildlife area or a public land, you submit an application. It's often very short, just a few pages to the Ohio Department of Natural Resources. Then they have a meeting and decide whether that particular property would be suitable to be fracked. And after that, there's a series of days that's being increasingly shortened and tightened, in which the the nomination to be fracked moves by the OGLMC to be a call for bids to frack. And then in a separate meeting, then that particular bid or multiple bids, so to speak, will be, one of those will be approved to frack. So the process takes a number of months from nomination to approval, but we've seen over the last 3 years about the equivalent of about 22 to 25,000 acres of Ohio state parks and public lands to be fracked. The most recent is the June 29th, 15,000 acres of Egypt Valley and Salt Fork State Park, and I believe Jockey Hollow, that were approved for fracking.
Chris Master Matteo has a question. Pennsylvania had issues with fracking effluent when the industry moved there. Oh, so sorry, I moved. How did Pennsylvania mitigate toxic chemicals? I've heard that wildlife has been returning to their waterways.
Pennsylvania is the home of Dimmock, Pennsylvania, where the movie Gasland was filmed. And that particular community, Dimmock, Pennsylvania, lost its water system due to fracking. And that was maybe 2008 or 2009. But over a 10-year period, through a lawsuit and a settlement, the drilling company that caused that to happen was fined, I don't know how much, $200 million or so, and is supposed to replace that drinking water supply for the rural area of Dimmock, Pennsylvania. From what I understand, the state of Pennsylvania is now allowing fracking in the Dimmock area again over the last couple of years. So has Pennsylvania come to terms with this pollution legacy? I would say not. I think that, Pennsylvania, Texas, Oklahoma, all the gas and oil states like Ohio are just ignoring the dangers of contaminating our aquifers and our groundwater from gas and oil waste that migrates out from injection wells and can contaminate aquifers and groundwater. So to be honest, I think that we are going to see some kind of a dramatic environmental crisis with somebody's water supply in one of these gas and oil states. I hope it's not Ohio, of course. You don't want to see that anywhere. But I think given the state legislature here in Ohio and their unwillingness to listen and their denial that there's gas and oil wastewater brine migration, I think that Ohio may be one of the first communities to suffer that. Now, just briefly, Washington County, which is the home of Marietta, has gone to Governor DeWine. They filed an ethics complaint against their sitting senator. They feel unheard. They're very concerned that their 19 Class 2 injection wells could leak into their drinking water supply. And so far, they have not been satisfied at all by the non-answers that they are getting and the denials that they're getting from the legislature. They're basically ignored. So it's not being handled well at all, anywhere that I know of.
Thank you. There's a question here, and I think I'm going to take a stab at answering this question from Lisa. Landfills are a huge contributor to global warming, and Ohio rules make us a destination for this. Do you see a collaboration of all the groups in Ohio to fight this global warming effects you've seen in existing parks that have fracking? I know that landfills do contribute somewhat to global warming, but I don't think that they are I shouldn't say they're not a major contributor, but they're not like one of the main contributors. I'm unsure if you're maybe confused when we talk about fracking waste. that doesn't go into landfills. That goes into injection wells. And I'm not saying you are confused, but just in case you are, that said, we don't really focus on landfills at Save Ohio Parks. And so I don't really have much information on that, but I'll let Melinda speak if she knows any more.
Yeah, there's a problem with methane and leachate from landfills. And in Pennsylvania, they've really studied that more effectively than Ohio has at this point. But methane gases get trapped or emitted from landfills. And especially a lot of toxins, solvents, things like that can leach through landfills down into the water supplies that, are contiguous next to these landfills. And that's a big problem as well. There were two parts of the question, and I don't see the other part now. Maybe it was something else about the landfills. Was that? Oh, someone heard that the wildlife has been returning to waterways in Pennsylvania. I don't really know anything about that. I know that waterways in Ohio are threatened. The federal government is considering and may well frack part of the Wayne National Forest, and that's one of the locations where hellbenders live. That's an endangered species, and they can only exist in very pristine, clear water. So that's something to be on your radar and to look for as well.
Oh, thank you. And next up, if from Bob, if these approved fracking wells infiltrate the aquifers Ohioans rely on, will the Ohio legislature be liable for supplying residents with water that they need?
It's a good question. I guess then we'd have standing, right? I would assume that the citizens could sue the state of Ohio and ask them to replace their water supply. But the big question becomes, what do you replace it with? If you contaminate an aquifer or groundwater in one area, but yet you still have 240 other injection wells across Ohio that could leak as well, your chances of really having a freshwater supply that's drinkable is diminishing. So at some point you have to ask yourself, is this a wise choice to be A, fracking, B, injecting toxic radioactive frack waste deep into the ground for storage, and C, what do you do with the ramifications and who's liable if it migrates into people's drinking water? So it's not a good situation, especially when we've got information that wind and solar are cheaper and they are reliable with battery storage, and they don't pollute the planet like this, like fracking does, like fossil fuels do.
And a question from Gina. She says that she believes in a prior presentation she listened in on with Save Ohio Parks. We mentioned that once fracking commences, it is not really monitored much, or the impact of it is not monitored much by the state. Can you please speak to this?
At least I did, got an indication of this when we had a founding board member conduct research on I believe it's up to 2,500 gas and oil related what they call incidents or accidents that were self-reported to the ODNR over the last 8 years in Ohio. I believe Ohio has been dinged many, many times and is well known, rather notorious, in fact, for its lax regulation of accidents. We see that in the EPA reports, the Ohio EPA reports as well. So essentially, there are not enough boots on the ground to do inspections of these sites. And I don't see how that's really going to change at this time.
Also from Gina, You mentioned that 80 to 90% of the money from oil and gas, their donations go to the GOP. Do you know who specifically and how this happens?
Um, we know we're in the process of doing research on that. The source for that information was Open Secrets, and that's a website that does that kind of research. And I believe Energy and Policy Institute as well verifies similar results.
Liz McGinnis asks, does it seem like something truly terrible will need to happen before change occurs? I feel like these facts would horrify most people, but also that people will choose to ignore or not believe them unless they can directly see the damage. This isn't much of a question, but it doesn't seem like there's a lot of hope for things to change with our current legislature.
I would have to agree with you on that last statement that it's unlikely that we're going to see much change with this current legislature in place. I think the nature of man is to procrastinate, and I do it, you do it, we all do it. We know that we have to do something and we bump right up to the deadline before we take action. But to be honest, this is all hands on deck time right now. We really have about 4 years till 2030 until that 1.5 degrees Celsius warming is baked in. Once extinctions start to take place, you can't unextinct animals and birds and things unless they've got DNA and they're going to resurrect them through their DNA. But I think we are facing a global catastrophe globally. And as well as Ohio, I think Ohio is likely going to have some kind of environmental event, probably on the scale of the Cuyahoga River burning back in the 1960s, before people actually wake up and say, we've got to stop this, we've got to do something now. So I hope it happens, I hate to say this, but sooner rather than later, so we can have that little kind of come to Jesus kind of moment.
And back to Gina, what can those of us from Indivisible Akron do to support Save Ohio Park's efforts aside from the slide with the Save Ohio Park contact information and the volunteer with Save Ohio Parks? What else can we do?
I would say, all the affirmative, responses to our work is always appreciated, but everybody can do something. And I know that we all kind of underestimate our talents and what we're able to do. But anybody can call their local city councilman or a state legislator or a senator and ask to have coffee with them or send them an email or write a letter to the local editor, or write a letter to the editor, or even write a column. I think probably at this point, we've got to try to do all of those things, but we really have to just talk to our friends and neighbors and our family members as well. We have to talk to them. And unfortunately, this is the kind of issue that's been politicized over the last 20, 25 years, and it should not be politicized. This is a human problem. Everybody wants clean air. Everybody wants fresh water. Everybody wants, pristine parks and public lands. So this isn't really a Democrat or Republican issue. This is an issue for all of us. And so I have to mention that whenever I go out and campaign for any cause, I think the most recent was I was getting signatures for a cause. And Save Ohio Parks and anti-fracking appealed to everyone across the board. Even if they didn't want to sign my petition, they they really want fresh air and clean water and pristine parks. So,
Is Save Ohio Park still protesting at the fracking board hearings?
yes. Define protest. What we do typically is about an hour before the OGLMC meetings begin, we have a press conference and we have speakers. We have volunteers across the state who come. They have prepared statements or they have 2 minutes of which to extemporaneously talk about some aspect of what fracking means to them and how we need to stop fracking and how the OGLMC should deny fracking of various parcels. And then we move into the meetings themselves. So yes, we're still there. We're still building. I think sometimes when you have an organization or a regulatory commission like the OGLMC that rubber stamps fracking without taking questions from the audience and often without even talking to media afterward, that people lose heart. So even if you see 12 people from Save Ohio Parks at the gas and oil meeting, every time we go to an event, a farmer's market, we sign up volunteers, and probably right now we have thousands of volunteers, and our influence is growing, I believe, throughout the state, as well as the volunteers that we contact and ask them to do various things for us.
Gina also asked if we can see the schedule of the meetings ahead of time.
That's an interesting question. We never know when the OGLMC will host a meeting. They're required by law to give us a week's notice. And lo and behold, they usually do, usually on a Friday for the following Monday, something like that. So they don't give us much time to prepare. So we basically have a system that we employ to make sure that we can galvanize our base, our volunteers, and get people there to make known our wishes.
Awesome. I think we have time for one more quick question if there's any more at the moment. I'll give folks a second. If you're writing a question, feel free to just say it out loud. Okay, you're good there in Akron. Awesome. All right. Well,
Still on mute.
Meg, are you speaking to us?
Oh.
Did Meg have a question? It looked like she did.
I think she has a question and she may still be on mute.
Okay. Meg, can you type your question in the chat, please? Are you not able to?
Just has to unmute.
Okay.
You know, Meg, if you're not able to ask your question now, you can contact us at hello@saveohioparks.org and we'll answer it as quickly as we can.
Or Meg, you could even text it to me quick if you have it. I know you have my number. I'm not seeing anything.
I don't think she knows she's unmuted. She needs to unmute.
We will follow up with her. Melinda, I can help her get that question to you.
So I just want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. Appreciate you all. Please, if you have any questions, May or anyone else, like Melinda said, email us at hello@saveohioparks.org. All three of us on this call today, we all get those emails, me, Kathy, and Melinda. So you'll likely hear back from one of us. We appreciate your concern about fracking in Ohio public parks and public lands. And we urge you to talk to your friends and family. Go back to the question earlier. Please talk to, oh, Meg, you're unmuted.
Yes, I got a notification from you. I could not finish typing. The thing was jammed. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Sure.
we can.
So my question is, do you have a list of people who might be willing to speak up who have been directly negatively affected by fracking? I think it would be really helpful somehow to get the word out by people who have been affected. Those kinds of stories really speak to people's hearts and can change people's minds. And I wondered whether you know of people who have been and you can access them or might be willing to speak sometime.
Yes, absolutely. We do have a list of people who are located in areas that have been fracked. And we usually will be happy to contact them, for future speaking. Typically at the press conferences, we allow people to speak for 2 minutes. That's a good amount, and it helps you focus your thoughts when you know that you have a deadline of 2 minutes to speak. But yes, we definitely want more stories from people who have been fracked, especially those who have been force unitized, which is me.
So
Yes.
who are the people that actually make the decision to frack? Is it this division of supposedly natural resources, which kind of things, I feel like that's a misnomer. At least they're not on the part of, they're not helping our natural resources in our state, but is that the organization that makes the final decision and the people that frankly we should meet with, I think?
Well, the Oil and Gas Land Management Commission is a group of appointees, 5 appointees from Governor Mike DeWine, his personal appointees. We have their contact information. You can contact them through the OGLMC website directly. You could always contact individuals on the OGLMC and see if they would meet with you or speak to you or communicate with you through email. Some people do have success with that, I think. But ultimately, the decision to frack a parcel is up to the OGLMC.
GLMC. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I'm glad you got unmuted, Meg. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thanks to you. Somebody sent a little thing and it asked if I wanted to be unmuted because every time I pushed the unmute thing at the bottom, it wouldn't work and it wouldn't finish typing my message. So something, probably my stupid iPad froze. But anyway, whoever sent that, thank you, because it worked.
All right. Some other just quick items. Please follow us on all social media. I think we're on Instagram, Blue Sky, X, Facebook. I don't think we're on TikTok, but we're pretty much everywhere. And like I said before, join us at saveohioparks.org. There's a join us. If it's your first time on the website, it should actually pop up immediately and ask you to join us. But there's a join us tab at the top right corner, so please jump in there. And like I said, you usually get emails from either me or Kathy most of the time, asking you to, take action. We have 3 board members in Cuyahoga County and tons of volunteers around the state. I would love for us to really expand our outreach in Northeast Ohio, especially outside of just Cuyahoga County. So thank you, Gina, for being so dogged about scheduling this meeting.
So I have another question, comment. So there's a group in Environmental Akron that send postcards. And I'm wondering whether it would make any sense to inundate these 5 members with postcards stating the negative impact of fracking. I think we need somehow to show them that if you're saying that the majority of people in our state are worried about fracking, then we have the majority. They shouldn't be doing these things against the majority of the people. So I wonder if there's a way, if we bug the hell out of them by either sending postcards or emails or something, maybe before their meeting, if we have the schedule of their meetings, to show that the vast majority disapprove of fracking and want it to stop. It upsets me that this is happening.
Well,
and we have no control.
Welcome to the club. It's a great idea. And of course, since it's your idea, you get to help.
Okay, I can talk to the guy. I'm involved in that.
So
with environmental. I am, yes. There's a guy named Bill Jordan.
About something like that.
Yeah, you know Bill, Gina, Bill Jordan.
Yeah, I was just going to say, SOP team, I can connect. Basically, they meet every Friday to write these postcards and send them out. So I can connect.
Tuesdays and Fridays.
Tuesdays and Fridays, great.
Yeah, twice a week.
So we can make it happen for sure. Meg, I'll work with you on that.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's a great idea.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Save Ohio Parks team. This was so informational. Melinda, the presentation was great. I believe we're all taking away a lot today, so thank you.
Mhm.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank
It's a
you.
pleasure to be here. I'm glad that everybody was so attentive.
I've got one last quick note. We're going to be hosting, Save Wild Parks will host a webinar with Indivisible Akron on Thursday, July 23rd at 6 p.m. It's our data centers that work for Ohioans. We released a data center report earlier this year, and please attend, tell your friends and family about it. And it's been a pleasure to talk to you tonight. Thank you so much. Have a great night.
Thanks.
Thank
We'll see you in a
you.
few
Thanks,
weeks.
everybody.
Take
Thank
care.
you.